Now to new developments in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, who's been missing since February 1st.
She was standing at her own front door 45 days ago, and somebody took her. Not a stranger passing through, not a random act of violence pulled from the chaos of an ordinary night. Somebody who had been watching that house in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood of Tucson, Arizona for 9 months. Somebody who knew the address. Somebody who researched the family. Somebody who showed up on January 11th, 3 weeks before the abduction, stood outside in the dark of that quiet cul-de-sac on East Orange Grove Road, studied the layout, clocked the cameras, and left without being stopped. Somebody who came back on February 1st with a ski mask, a loaded weapon, a backpack, and a device in their jacket pocket designed to kill the internet signal in that entire neighborhood so that nobody could see what happened next. This was not a crime of impulse. This was a plan, and that plan worked. Because Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, a grandmother, a woman who had lived in Tucson for more than 5 decades, the mother of NBC Today co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, has been missing for 45 days. And the person who took her has been walking free for every single one of them. Now here's what just happened 60 seconds ago. On March 5th, Fox News reporter Matt Finn published what the FBI told him directly. Tips in the Nancy Guthrie investigation, the Bureau confirmed, have tapered. That single sentence detonated across every true crime forum, every Facebook group, every comment section following this case. People heard it and immediately reached the same conclusion. The case is slowing down. The leads have dried up. The public gave everything it had, and it was not enough. Nancy Guthrie is running out of time, and nobody is coming. That interpretation is wrong, completely, dangerously. And the people spreading it do not understand what the FBI just did and why it matters more than anything else that has happened in this investigation since the doorbell footage dropped on February 10th. They do not understand that tips tapering and a case going cold are two entirely different operational realities. And right now, the FBI's Phoenix field office is running a dedicated full-time task force out of its Tucson headquarters that did not exist 3 weeks ago. They do not understand that the Bureau's new public message, stripping the tip line of well wishes, personal theories, and case speculation, is not a retreat. It is a precision recalibration. It is the FBI picking up a sniper rifle after 45 days of firing a shotgun. They do not understand that when Sheriff Chris Nanos stands in front of cameras at the Pima County Sheriff's Office on Benson Highway and says investigators are definitively closer, when retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffin-Daffer tells Newsweek this case is the polar opposite of cold, when up to 100 federal agents and analysts are working active leads simultaneously, and when $1.2 million in anonymous cash sits unclaimed and waiting, none of that is the language of a case losing ground. That is the language of a case in its final approach. Tonight, this video goes through everything. The evidence the FBI is now centering its entire strategy around. The forensic threads that are still burning 45 days in. The physical details of the suspect that someone watching this video has seen with their own eyes in their own life and has not yet called about. And the one decision, one phone call, one anonymous message, one moment of choosing what kind of person you are, that ends this. You need to watch this entire video. Not because it is interesting, because somewhere between what you already know and what you are about to understand, there is a detail that belongs to you. A detail you have been carrying since February 1st without knowing what to do with it. Nancy Guthrie does not have time for you to close this tab. Here is what we know about her last confirmed moments. On the evening of Saturday, January the 31st, Nancy Guthrie did what she had done hundreds of times before in her life in Tucson. She left her home in the Catalina Foothills, or ate dinner and played games with relatives, then was driven home and returned at around 9:50 in the evening. Her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, married to Nancy's daughter, Annie Guthrie, was the last known person to see her alive. He dropped her at the front door of her home on East Orange Grove Road and drove away into the Tucson night. That was the last moment anyone in her family saw her. The next morning, Sunday, February 1st, Nancy did not appear for a scheduled live stream of a church service. A member of her church contacted the family. Relatives drove to the Catalina Foothills home around 11 in the morning, searched the house, searched the surrounding property, and found no sign of her. Her phone was still inside. Her personal belongings were still inside. The things a person takes when they choose to leave were all still there. At around noon, the family called 911 and reported Nancy Guthrie missing to the Pima County Sheriff's Department. What Deputy A found at the front porch of that home on East Orange Grove Road changed this from a welfare check into a federal kidnapping investigation within hours. Blood. Drops of it confirmed by DNA analysis to belong to Nancy Guthrie. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos stated that he believed she had been abducted. He said publicly and unequivocally that the evidence at the scene indicated she did not leave on her own. There was no goodbye, no voluntary departure. She was taken from the threshold of her own home in the middle of the Tucson night. 9 days later, on February 10th, FBI Director Kash Patel stood before cameras and released surveillance footage recovered from Nancy's Nest doorbell camera. Footage that Google, which owns the Nest platform, extracted from its back-end cloud servers after the camera itself had been physically tampered with. What that footage showed is the single most important piece of physical evidence in this entire investigation. A male suspect, approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 inches tall, with an average build, wearing a black ski mask, black gloves, carrying a black 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker pack backpack that authorities said may have been purchased at Walmart, and armed with a visible holstered firearm. His eyebrows visible through the eye holes of the mask, his black mustache visible beneath the lower edge where the mask did not fully cover his face, and on his gloved hand, visible even through the thick protective material, a pinky ring. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffin-Daffer examined that footage and arrived at one specific conclusion she has stated publicly and repeatedly. He is, in her words, very identifiable. The front doorbell camera was disconnected at 1:47 in the morning. That timestamp is the last confirmed electronic record of what happened at Nancy Guthrie's front door. From that moment, the digital trail goes dark. But here is what most people covering this case have not yet fully absorbed. Investigators have now broadened the range of dates they are examining for clues, specifically requesting camera footage from January 24th. Approximately 1 week before Nancy is believed to have been taken, January 24th, January 11th, 2 Saturdays, both weekends. Both dates when a suspect may have been in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood studying the layout. We're timing the movement, watching which lights came on and which cameras covered which angles. This was not a man who drove to East Orange Grove Road once and acted on impulse. This was someone who came back. No voice in this investigation has been more precise, more consistent, or more willing to say publicly what others only whisper privately than retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffin-Daffer. She spent 25 years inside the Bureau. She built federal cases. She knows what an investigation that is closing in looks like from the inside. And what she is saying right now about the Nancy Guthrie case is more significant than anything Sheriff Chris Nanos has said from behind a podium at the Pima County Sheriff's Office on Benson Highway. On March 10th, Coffin-Daffer posted something on X that stopped every serious follower of this case. But she asked publicly why Sheriff Nanos keeps turning away proven, capable civilian search experts like Texas EquiSearch and the real Cajun Navy, and then asked the question directly. Is law enforcement close to an arrest, and do they know what happened to Nancy, so they don't want to waste the valuable resources of these groups? Read that carefully. A 25-year FBI veteran is publicly raising the possibility that the reason civilian search teams are being turned away is not because investigators have given up. It is because they may already know enough that a physical search has become unnecessary. An arrest does not require a search team. An arrest requires a name. And Coffin-Daffer is asking whether that name is already known. She went further on March 15th when she turned her analysis to the FBI's new billboard campaign, funded by Clear Channel Outdoor and running across California, Arizona, Texas, and specifically Houston. Coffin-Daffer described it as a shotgun approach that shows little direction and then identified the real problem. The billboards do not show the suspect. She has been saying this since February. The porch guy, as she calls him, is the key. He is identifiable. His eyebrows, his mustache, his ring, his holster, his build. And the FBI has not put his image on a single billboard. That criticism is not academic. It is operational, and it speaks directly to why the new focused tip strategy, asking for specific, detailed, fact-based leads rather than general calls, represents such a significant shift. In Israel, CNN senior law enforcement analyst Josh Campbell framed the operational reality of what 40,000 tips actually does to an investigation with a precision that reframes the entire story. He said that time is of the essence in a kidnapping case, and that bogging down investigators with a mountain of false leads could have slowed their effort as they sorted fact from fiction. That is not a complaint. That is a diagnosis. The FBI's Phoenix field office received so many calls in the weeks after Nancy disappeared that the process of sorting credible leads from well-meaning noise consumed the very investigative bandwidth that finding her requires. The new tip strategy is not a retreat. It is a correction. Retired FBI Special Agent Steve Moore told journalist Brian Enton something on March 13th that cuts to the most difficult truth in this entire case. When Enton asked why no one has come forward despite a $1.2 million reward, Moore did not hesitate. He said the most likely explanation is that the only people who have real knowledge of what happened may themselves be culpable. Whatever was done, Moore said, was done in such a way that it was kept from other people. And then he added the sentence that no one in this case has yet fully processed. If the worst fears about Nancy Guthrie's fate are confirmed, he said, a deal is not going to look attractive. Because how do you spend $1 million when you are going to spend most of the rest of your life in prison? That is the wall the investigation is now pressing against. And the FBI's new focused tip push is designed to find the one crack in it. Stop. This chapter is not for the 40,000 people who called the tip line in February. It is not for the true crime community debating theories in comment sections. It is not for the journalists covering this story from Phoenix and New York and Washington. It is for one person, one specific person who has been watching this video with something sitting in their chest that they have not been able to name out loud since the night of February 1st. You know the man who stood on Nancy Guthrie's front porch on East Orange Grove Road in the Catalina Foothills? Not because you were there, because you know him. You have been in the same room with him. You have sat across a table from him in Tucson or somewhere else in Arizona, or somewhere else entirely, and you have looked at that face and not thought twice about it because it was just a face you knew. And then on February 10th, the FBI released footage of a man in a ski mask, and something moved through you that you still cannot fully explain. You are a woman who has seen that mustache without a mask over it, a brother who grew up with those eyebrows and would recognize them in a photograph taken from across a parking lot, a co-worker who has clocked that pinky ring 100 times across a desk or a workbench or a counter without ever thinking twice about it until 45 days ago when everything changed. A neighbor in the Catalina Foothills who noticed something in the weeks before February 1st. A friend who saw his routine shift after that night. An absence that did not have a clean explanation. A phone he became suddenly protective of. A new anxiety that was not there in January. You have been watching every press conference Sheriff Chris Nanos gives at the Pima County Sheriff's Office, every update on NBC, on CNN, on Fox News. You have seen Savannah Guthrie's Instagram posts, the yellow flowers outside her mother's home on East Orange Grove Road, the messages to the Tucson community, the plea to bring her home. And every time you hear 1-800-CALL FBI, you feel it, because calling means exposure. Calling in a case covered by every television network in America and now displayed on billboards across California, Arizona, Texas, and Houston means your name is somewhere. It means the person you know finds out who made the call. It means consequences you cannot fully predict. And that fear, specific, physical, suffocating, is the only reason you have not already picked up the phone. So hear this directly. Savannah Guthrie posted a step-by-step video on Instagram showing exactly how to submit a tip to the FBI without giving your name. Her caption contained 2 sentences that matter more than any press conference statement made in the past 45 days. Tips can be anonymous. The reward can be paid in cash, not a check, not a wire transfer, cash, at a neutral location, with no identification required. The FBI's own statement specified that they are asking only for serious and detailed fact-based information. No well wishes, no case theories, no personal messages to the Guthrie family. They are not asking for you to become a witness. They are not asking for you to appear in court tomorrow. They are asking for one piece of specific information from one person who has it, and they have built every possible protection around the act of delivering it. The combined reward stands at over $1.2 million today. $1 million from the Guthrie family for Nancy's recovery, $100,000 from the FBI's Phoenix field office, $102,500 from 88 Crime. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Visit tips.fbi.gov. Call 5203-514900. Text if speaking feels like too much. Submit online if a phone call feels impossible. Nancy Guthrie requires daily medication. Every day she does not have, it is a day her life is in direct danger. That is not a rhetorical point. That is a medical fact confirmed by Sheriff Chris Nanos himself. The one call you are not making right now is not a neutral act. It has a consequence, and you know it. Understand what is moving right now beneath the surface of this investigation. A dedicated task force has been formed. 5 Pima County Sheriff's Department officers and several FBI agents working full-time, exclusively, on the Nancy Guthrie case. Not rotating in and out, not dividing their attention across the full caseload of Pima County. Solely this. They are operating in coordination between the Pima County Sheriff's Office on Benson Highway in Tucson and the FBI's Phoenix field office. And they have one job. Find the man on that porch, find Nancy Guthrie, and build a federal case that holds. The physical investigation has not stopped. It has sharpened. But the Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed on March 13th that it continues to analyze various forms of evidence in the Nancy Guthrie case, including material from laboratories as well as images and videos captured by cameras. Those laboratory materials include mixed DNA recovered from inside Nancy's home on East Orange Grove Road, DNA from an unknown male that does not belong to any family member, all of whom have been formally cleared. That DNA was submitted to CODIS, the FBI's National Criminal Database. No match returned, which means either this person has never been arrested or they were careful enough previously to avoid that database entirely. But CODIS is one door. Genetic genealogist Cece Moore appeared on the Break the Case podcast, hosted by Coffin Daffer, and said she would still go back and re-swab parts of that house and look for even a rootless hair, because investigators can solve these cases now with just a rootless hair. That is not speculation. That is the science that identified the Golden State Killer. That is the science that placed Brian Kohberger at the scene of the Idaho student murders. And it is actively in play in this case. Investigators have also uncovered additional images from motion-activated security cameras covering the driveway, front door, and backyard of Nancy's Catalina Foothills property. Images taken in the days and weeks leading up to the abduction on February 1st. Those images are currently being analyzed. They have not been made public. And while investigators have confirmed they do not show anything overtly suspicious, the fact that they exist, that someone's movements in and around that property in the days before the abduction are captured on camera, is an investigative asset that was not publicly known until this week. Here is what most people following this case have not yet connected into a single picture. Investigators are now specifically interested in camera footage from January 24th, 1 week before Nancy disappeared. Combined with the already confirmed interest in January 11th and the confirmed physical surveillance visit to the Catalina Foothills neighborhood, flagged by neighbor Aldine Meister, who observed a suspicious man outside Nancy's home from her window that same night, a pattern emerges that changes the entire scope of this investigation. January 11th, January 24th, January 31st, 3 Saturdays, 3 visits, each one a step closer to the front door of a home on East Orange Grove Road. This is not a profile of someone who acted impulsively. Sheriff Nanos told NBC News that investigators believe they know why he did this, and that it was targeted. Targeted. That word carries the full weight of 9 months of planning, multiple surveillance visits, and an operation precise enough to disconnect a doorbell camera at 1:47 in the morning without leaving a single identified trace. And there is one more dimension to this investigation that nobody is talking about loudly enough. Retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer wrote publicly on X that another point no one seems to be talking about is that there is a kidnapper, at least one, and a potential murderer, possibly more. They've been on the streets and asked who will be their next target. She compared the operational signature of this case to the 2022 Idaho student murders. A targeted abduction, a specific victim, a precise planned execution. The same profile that produced Brian Koberger. When NBC correspondent Liz Kreutz asked Sheriff Nanos directly whether the suspect could strike again, Nanos responded, absolutely. That answer should be sitting in the mind of every person in southern Arizona right now. And it should be sitting heaviest in the mind of the one person who knows the face behind that mask. Because if that person walks free long enough to find a next target, the weight of that is not on the FBI. It is on everyone who knew and said nothing. On March 5th, Fox News reporter Matt Finn posted on X that tips in the Nancy Guthrie investigation had tapered. The true crime community heard that and feared the worst. A case going quiet, a case going cold, a grandmother running out of time while the public moved on. But now you know what that sentence actually means. It means the FBI's Phoenix field office has processed tens of thousands of calls, extracted 750 credible leads from a single targeted appeal following the reward announcement, formed a dedicated 5-officer task force working solely on this case, recovered additional camera images from the pool, backyard, and side yard of Nancy's home in the Catalina Foothills, expanded its surveillance timeline to include January 11th and January 24th as key dates of pre-abduction reconnaissance, and is running mixed DNA recovered from inside that home through genetic genealogy capable of identifying a suspect from a single rootless hair. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer is publicly asking whether an arrest is already approaching. Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed investigators are definitively closer, and a $1.2 million reward is sitting unclaimed in anonymous cash at a neutral location that requires no identification, no courthouse appearance, and no public exposure. This is not a case losing oxygen. This is a case that has learned exactly what it needs and is now asking one person for it. The eyebrows, the mustache, the pinky ring, the specific holster configuration, the way he moves through a room like he has been there before. Somebody who knows that face has been watching this case for 45 days. And somebody who knows that face has heard 1-800-CALL-FBI more times than they can count. Somebody who knows that face is carrying something right now that is getting heavier with every single day that Nancy Guthrie does not come home. Sheriff Chris Nanos confirmed that Nancy Guthrie needs daily medication and that it could be fatal if she does not receive it. That is not background information. That is the clock this investigation is running against. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Visit tips.fbi.gov. Call 88-CRIME. The anonymity is guaranteed. The cash is real. The location is neutral. The identification is not required. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 45 days. She is 84 years old. She needs her medication. She needs her family. The one call you are not making right now has a cost, and she is the one paying it.